Good evening and welcome to Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation. We've been gone for a little while, but the reason we were gone so long is because we had a bountiful, beautiful Fresh Book Festival in the beautiful city of Daytona Beach, and it was amazing. If you missed it this year, you must come back next year, and it's going to be February 22, 23, 24 in the beautiful city of Daytona Beach in 2024. So put it on your calendar. And the next big event, and I don't know the dates of that. That's in Atlanta, Mama Tony. What's the date of Mr. the National Black
National Book Club Conference is? I'm flipping
Mr.
my
Curtis
calendar. July 27th through July 27th through the 30th.
July 27th through the 30th. It's the National Black Book Club.
National Book Club Conference.
Yeah, and it is. Listen, you think F.R.E.H is good? Atlanta, I hate to say it, is bigger and better. But I have learned from the best. He was there at F.R.E.H and laid some nuggets and knowledge on me, and I appreciate him and his time. Anyway, tonight our guest is Casandra Charles, and she is the author of Jamie Reynolds Chronicles, Lust and Lies in 2015, Secrets Revealed in 2016, Pillow Talk and Too Good to Be True in 2018, Pillow Talk 2 in 2019, Tender Love and Care in 2020, and standalone spinoff Thank You next in 2021, Joyride in 2022, and Joyride Sexual Positions Flashcards, which we will talk about later, in 2023. So thank you, Sandra, for being here on Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. Thank you again for having me today.
Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation is brought to you by Iowans Diamonds, LLC, Ladero Press, Milton McCulloch, a Dante production, which will have its inaugural concert in Holly Hill, Florida on the 19th of March. Please join us when the band Groove will be playing there at in Holly Hill. Join us then. Please mute all of your calls, please. If you have any questions for Casandra, please leave them in the chat room. And there will be time at the end of the conversation to have question and answer with her. This conversation is being recorded. Thank you, Casandra, for being here this evening. Take a moment and give our audience a brief background.
Okay. My name is Casandra Charles. I'm born and raised in Brooklyn. I am an author. It's so surreal to say that nowadays. I finished my first book in 2015, and I am proud to say that it took me about 10 years to write it. I think I started writing, I put it down and kept on writing and put it down. And I did that off and on for years. And I think I definitely psyched myself out as far as like, can I finish this? Should I finish it? Would people receive my book as it is? As I mentioned early on, I do suffer from adult dyslexia, and I never allowed it to be a barrier to my abilities to move on and forward. I have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, I have a thriving career, and I'm proud to say I'm a 8-book author. So that's my story in a nutshell. I'm an avid reader, and writing honestly came so natural to me that I was really excited to be able to put it out there. And here I am 8 books later, which is so surreal to say. I'm really excited about it though.
Here's the thing. I don't think you can be a good writer if you're not a good writer.
I agree. I totally agree with you on that one. There's authors out there that I meet and they're like, how do you read 60 books? And I'm like, how do you not? Like, so on average, I read about 50 to 60 books a year, which sounds like a lot, but 1 book a week. And I'm just like, how do you not? Like, I love to read, to see like the different perspectives, to see the different genres. And, I have the ability to not, like, I don't read a person's book and I don't get inspired to write something they write. I just love reading the craft of this industry.
I know, because you got characters that have been around forever. That ain't got nothing to do with what somebody else
wrote. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And these people have been around. They're sitting around saying, okay, when is it my turn? Come on. Come on, it's my
Yes.
turn, you know, yes.
I saw an article a few years ago, and they said, so I think it was back in like maybe 2018 or 2019, Amazon hit 1 million. You hear me? 1 million authors hit Amazon in like a few years ago. So I'm like, listen, there's a genre for all of us. There's a book for everyone. Just write it. That's literally people like, how do I get started? I'm like, listen, just write. Once you write it,
Yeah.
it's out there, you know.
Once you write it, it's out there. I think people have a hard time telling their truth.
Very true.
Right. And people have a hard time. I write fiction, but they'll say, did you do that? I'm like, if I did that, I would not be still working. I would have $1 million. I would have $1 million somewhere stashed away.
Okay.
No,
I do say that my writing is an alter ego of myself.
Right.
I'm very square. What I mean square, I literally live in a box. I'm super square. So to even write erotica, to even make, you know, sexual position flashcards, it's just my imagination, just having fun with it. Exactly. Everything is completely made up. I mean, of course, it's inspired by true events, things that happen in my life, my friend's life, things that I just seen around, you know, watching TV and something, and a storyline would just pop up in my head. And that's literally my writing journey. I don't, you know, I just put it out there and hopefully something sticks.
I was like, if I was that kind of contortionist, I would be making a whole lot of money. So
I agree.
No,
we do it for the love, for sure.
Do it for the love of it. So before we get into your novels, let's discuss your dyslexia, how you were diagnosed, what measures you took to overcome it, and how you're dealing with it now.
So, as I say, I do consider myself to have adult dyslexia. You know, I wear it like I'm proud to be a voice of it. I really went through middle school, high school, elementary school, not really knowing what's going on. You know, I understood the curriculum, I did the work, and somehow I just wasn't, my paper just kind of wasn't getting it, but I retained the information. It wasn't until, believe it or not, I got to college and my guidance counselor, you know, just kind of sat me down and had one of my papers. I guess I'm assuming, honestly, this was, you know, back in the early 90s, you know, late 90s, excuse me. So I really don't remember the actual process, but I believe a teacher may have given it to my guidance counselor. And I went to Morris Brown College. It was amazing college. And she literally sat me down and said, I want to do a little bit of evaluation on you because we believe that you may have a form of dyslexia. At the time, it was kind of like, there's many levels to it. There is not I mean, yes, there is a traumatic side that people may have dyslexia from a traumatic standpoint. I didn't have it like that. If we can go back, and this is a theory, if I can go back and kind of piece things together, there is a form of, it's called primary dyslexia, where you can get it from a family member that is, you know, genetically passed down. I love my father to death, but my father is a tradesman, well, my father's a tradesman, we're West Indian. So my father stopped school very, very early on. I will probably say maybe middle school, and went straight into the workforce, which was kind of common for his, you know, for that time frame and his age. And just observing my dad and just how he functions. I believe he probably does have it as well. And maybe it was a trait that passed on to myself. And again, like I said, I embrace it. How do I overcome it? I take my time, I read. I feel like in 2023, there is a cheating way to life. You know, we have Grammarly, we have cell phones, we have Microsoft Word, and there's a lot of different things that helps us. But yeah, I own it. I am I say proud very loosely, but I own the fact that I do have a disability, but I never allow my disability to be a hinder to my success. It doesn't be a hinder to who I am and what I've become. But yeah, I just take my time. I still read. I do read kind of, you know, things might be a little bit jumbled up, and I just have to stop and say, wait, what did I just read? And go back and read it again. It's something you live with forever. There's no real cure per se. There's no pill you can take. There's no school you can go to. It's just a way to kind of cope with it, is what they teach you how to do. And there's over the years, since I am adult in it, over the years, I've just kind of channeled it. Meditation, functioning, taking my time reading, just engaging what I'm reading, just really just pushing on and forward and not allowing it to be a cripple to, you know, like my career. You know, like I said, I have Grammarly, and I'm very excited that something like that exists. I have an amazing editor who was aware of my disability, if you want to call it, and she has been super helpful in all 8 of my books. I still use her to this day. And I just really just thank my team who are there to just really just guide me and help me through the process of, of just the setbacks that I'm going through. Sorry.
Did you have children? Was that gene or chromosome, whatever, was it passed down to any of your children? You don't
Well,
know.
I do have a daughter, and she's only 2.5. And
so you don't know yet.
I feel like it is a little bit of a concern, because as far as like, you just kind of wonder, like, she's only 2.5, so she has moments where she may struggle with her ABCs, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like,
right.
but I
all
feel
have trouble with their ABCs.
Exactly, just I'm like, oh my gosh, and I'm like, okay, calm down, calm down.
Right.
We're in a different time, a different world. Like, if I am very, I have good self-awareness, so if I see something early on, and I don't blame my parents, because again,
they didn't know.
I was born in the 80s. They have no idea what was going on.
My parents let me smoke cigarettes in the house with them. Like, really? You did that?
I remember the first time hearing, I remember the first time hearing about dyslexia was on an episode of Cosby Show. And I don't know if everyone remember that. And Theo actually had it. I remember Bill Cosby was like, they were cheering him on. And remember, he actually had it. And that was my first time hearing about it. And I didn't hear from it again until about 5 or 6 years later, when I finally, and I was like, oh, this is the thing that Theo had. And it was just kind of like a moment. And actually,
I do get Bill Cosby's real son who died, had dyslexia.
Okay.
And that's why they were, Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. No, I didn't know that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I just informed my instructors that, I'm working through it. Again, back in the day, we actually had to type a paper up. We had to actually put it together. There was no real way to assist us. And I made it through. I passed with, with a high GPA. Again, I have my master's degree, and I was able to really thrive in my own career, as well as an author in my own professional career. So
you do know about the read aloud function in Word, right?
Yes, I'm aware of that one. Yeah,
it's really nice.
I haven't tried it yet. I mean,
Cassandra. Oh, it is.
And when we talk a little bit in detail about my writing style, that's why I can't use it, because I literally just kind of go off the top of the head, and then that paragraph may make it to 6 chapters later, and that might be the end. So I really don't have a clear way of writing to actually utilize it. But I'm also really slow to use things that make sense in a nutshell. Like I just, like, people like, you write, how do you write? Like, I literally, old school, I print out my final drafts, physically print out and put it in a binder, and I read it by hand, and I edit it by hand. And people are like, what? I'm like, I just can't see it on to edit it after my editor gives it to me. I can't see it on a screen. I have to see it on paper, and I have to make notes in there. And I just do things a little bit backwards. And
hey, no, if it works for you, whatever works for you. We have a friend, Keith Kareem Williams, who still writes everything in a notebook. I can't believe that.
I'm not a little advanced, yeah.
And he has over 23, 24, 25 books.
I can imagine.
And so everybody has their process of how they do it, and so I can appreciate whatever it is you decide works for you. Yeah. So let's talk about Jamie Reynolds Chronicles.
Yes.
And how they were developed. Give us a brief synopsis on each one of your books.
Okay. So the Jamie Reynolds Chronicles is my baby. I have to honestly say, how did I start writing? I have no idea. I think it was right after college, and I used to just be that friend to observe their crazy life, my crazy life, and we should just sit around as girls and just kind of talk about it. And I remember one day someone said, you should write a book, because I used to read all the time. You should write a book. And I'm like, And I just picked up one day and I just started writing, and I just kept on writing and writing and writing. And I have no idea. It just turned into a series. Initially, my series was going to be 3 books. And the reason I have a 6-book series, and what it is, it's one particular character, Jamie Reynolds. And I've read books, and I read one book, and I'm like, well, what happened to this guy? What happened to her? And what happened to her like 5 years later and stuff? And books are beautifully written, but I've always wanted more. So my series, it's a 6-book series, and you follow one character, Jamie Reynolds, probably within like a 10 to 15 year time frame of her adult life. So straight out of college up until, I don't want to tell it ended, up until the very end, but you follow her life, you follow her journey. A lot of people say, oh my gosh, it's very relatable. You go through her ups and her downs, the financial issues, love issues, of course, good sex or bad sex. You just go through everything that most women, whether it be Black, African American or not, you follow their journey of life and being an independent woman. and, the pros and cons about it, the way, men look at you, the way men talk about you, cheating, everything that most women tend to
all
go
of it,
through.
right.
Yeah, exactly. So I have 6 books. The first book is Lust and Lies, which is the very beginning. Jamie is fresh out of college, new to the world, really trying to make a stamp in her life. And she ended up meeting a guy named Antonio Hall, which we call Tony in the book. And yeah, she's smitten over this guy. She's really fascinated by this guy. And she takes a leap of faith, and she moves on with the particular guy, and he's just not what he was supposed to be. And he kind of tore her down and just was a little bit all over the place in life. So unfortunately, then you move on to book 2, which is Secrets Revealed. And what I did is I did a little bit of a weird thing. I wrote backwards. So I started the book. So Jamie is in a place in her life where she's like kind of starting over. After book 1, she's heartbroken from this past relationship, and she's kind of looking back at her life. She's going to therapy because I believe strongly in this kind of self-healing and self-reflection in life. So she has to start all over, move back to wherever she was moving to. And, and she's talking to a counselor, and a counselor is kind of diving deep into who she is, things that she went through, why she is the way she is. There is a lot of hidden secrets about, how she became who she is. And then the third book was actually kind of fun to write. This is when I feel like, in my opinion, I really started owning the fact that I'm an author. I think book 1 and book 2, I was like, okay, I wrote a book, here you go.
Right.
But then book 3, I was like, I can do this. This is actually
in the industry, they think, you write 1 book, it's okay. 2 books, they start looking at you. By the 3rd book, then they say,
Yeah. So my 3rd book was totally different. What I did is I took all the men in book 1 and book 2, and I've given them their point of view of the character Jamie from book 1 and book 2. So it's really like, I believe off the top of my head, I think it's like 5 or 6 guys who interacted with Jamie at some point in their life, in via book 1 and book 2, and they have their version. So, Jamie had her version of like, oh, he broke my heart. And his version of it was like, I really tried, but I couldn't live up to her standards. So it's just kind of like a flip. So it's like the guys have their point of view and Pillow Talk 1. And then book 4 is called Too Good to Be True. And this kind of changed it up a little bit. This is kind of when Jamie thought, again, the title, Too Good to Be True, Jamie thought life was great. Life with everything she wanted. And it was completely opposite. And she loses everything under the sun. So it's like starting over 2.0. It's like starting over. What did I really look at? Starting over close to 30, I believe, in that particular book. And then book 5, I think I was just bored, and my imagination went completely wild. And this is kind of when I started doing a little bit more erotica. Now, book 1 through book 3, book 4, I've always written love scenes, sex scenes kind of stuff. But in book 5, I don't know what was in my head. I really wrote like a complete erotica book about, there was a sex dungeon. There was a lot of different things going on. And it was about one of the males in book 3 and 4. He kind of lived like this double life. And the double life that he left,
nice.
was from a female that kind of changed his life sexually. And she took away what Jamie thought she had, because again, it was like, it was right after Too Good to Be True. So it's kind of like their story, their twisted love story. And then book 6, I had to end it, honestly. So book 6 was kind of like, where does Jamie go from here? So it's called Tender, Love, and Care, and it's spelled Tinder, because here Jamie is over 30 and she is dating
on Tinder.
on Tinder. She's doing online dating. So it's just written from a point of view of like, when you're over 30, what do you do? So Jamie's starting over. She's over 30. She's having these pop-up dates, and she loves it. She hates it. And you really just follow her journey of like starting over, being 30, not really dealing with the foolishness, but how do you really truly find love? And then again, you hope she finds love in the very end of the story, the series. And then I was done. And then I finished the series roughly in maybe 2020. And then the pandemic happened. And I was like, well, shoot, I'm bored.
Yeah, like, what do I do now?
And I was like, well, I ended the series. So I started doing spinoffs. And my concept of the spinoffs is, it's still the Jamie Reynolds Chronicles, but what it is I've written 6 books. So out of the 6 books, there's characters that just maybe either were just entertaining to write and maybe needed their own book, or you just kind of felt sorry for them, or you really liked them. So I started writing about what, out of the series, some characters that I just thought was entertaining enough to write a full book out of it. So Thank You Next, which was I think it was a beautiful book. It was actually written just like a love story about a guy who was in book 6. He was one of the guys she met on Tinder, and it's in the middle of the pandemic and he's looking for love. And after, I think everyone sat in the pandemic and they kind of reflected and kind of figured out life. And what he figured out was, I'm tired of running the games. I'm tired of, playing the player. I'm ready to settle down and find, I'm bored in my house. I can't do anything. So what do I do? So you see his quest for love, but it's called Thank You Next because in a nutshell, he does pay homage to Jamie, who was his ex-girlfriend at the time, and other relationships that he's been with, just kind of feel like they prepared him for where he's at in life. And I think sometimes that's how relationships are. If you look at relationships from a different set of lens, you do want to say kind of thank you. I'm ready to move on because I've healed, I've grown, I've learned in my journey. And then my last book, which was Joyride. This was my first real full erotica. I did a lot of research. I always make a joke to say if anyone even used my laptop during the time of writing this book, I will probably be on somebody's wanted page. I was Googling porn. I was Googling positions. I was just having so much fun.
You got to do research. I
have to make sure the positions are correct. If I say I got to make sure the arm is where it needs to be. I was taking notes. I was visualizing things. So I had a ball writing a Joyride, and it's again another spinoff. So Joyride is a female who was a former stripper at Magic City in Atlanta, Georgia, and she kind of grew out of the Magic City stage and was like, what's next in life? So she ended up going to a swingers club, which was actually introduced in, I believe, book 2. Book 1 or book 2, I think, was introduced, a swingers club called Venus. And it really was a club in Atlanta called Venus, like this underground sex club in Atlanta. And Venus was going out of business, and her and this gentleman named Robert, who was also in the series, they team up together and they open up the first Black after hours sex club in Atlanta. And it's for the who's who of Atlanta. And you're like, well, what can go wrong? I love Joy because her character is more empowering. Yes. From the outside looking in, you'd be like, oh my gosh, she was a slut. She slept a lot. She was very open to her sexuality, and she was just a boss in her right mind. She was successful. She had her own money. She just did what came natural to her, what was fun to her. So that's how we got to Joyride. And in the book, I wrote something in the book where towards the end, she makes Joyride sexual products. And she says in the book, my biggest joy was making my Joyride sexual position flashcards because there's nothing like it on the market. And I was sitting in, at the end of the year last year, and I was like, well, what do I do next? I guess I'm going to write a book because I do have another book in mind. And then these came about. And these are my sexual position flashcard. And if you're not over 21, go ahead and turn your eye for a second. But these are flashcards for the culture. And what there are 30 flashcards that is going to teach you different sexual position. And each card, so of course they're African-American characters that were designed by myself and my designer. And what it is, it teaches you different sexual positions to tell you exactly how to do each position, tells you the name of the position, and also tells you the penetration option of the position. And I
are
feel
those
like
flashcards independent of the book?
Yes, they are separately of the book.
Okay.
So, I mean, they do have the title. It does, yes, they can kind of go together because it is very similar in look, but there's own independent card. It comes in a cute little satin bag that says enjoy the ride. And yeah, there are 30 flashcards, and they're just really to enjoy people, to empower people in the bedroom, just to have fun. It's funny, I have a lot of single people buying these cards. I'm like, listen, you got to do research. And for women, we don't really watch porn. I mean, we will watch it with a gentleman, but we won't watch it for ourselves. And these are a way to really educate you and empower you to understand different sexual positions, do what makes you feel comfortable, who goes on top, who goes on the bottom, what are different penetration options. And I say, if something is not comfortable for you, switch to the next card. Like there are 31 cards. and I've hand selected and worked with my designer to make sure that we are represented accurately. We are represented in the way of education. And I do call these educational flashcards because they're there for education. They're not porn, they're tastefully done. Even when people see them, they're like, oh, these are done really nice. Like they're tastefully done. There's no you don't see any body parts in here outside of maybe some breasts every now and then, but you don't see any body parts in here. It is not to show, it's not to be pornographic. It's really to show people, to empower and educate people on how to spice up the bedroom. I mean, again, I am so square. So to know that I even wrote something like this or made something like this, it's entertaining just to say it. But yeah, and it goes well with Joyride because Joyride does talk about a lot of different positions and, you know, things to do after you finish having, you know, intercourse and stuff. And this is just a good way to kind of partner the two together. Just a good read, but then also to kind of spice up your bedroom in the end. And a lot of females, like I said, I obviously sell to majority females right now. And it just came out February 3rd or 6th. It depends on how you look at it, but it just came out a few weeks ago, and they've been selling very well. They're you can purchase on my website at reynolds.chronicles.com. And I'm working on getting them in Amazon. They'll be on Amazon in a few weeks. I had to redo my trademarking in order to get it live on Amazon, but they're working their way up there. And a couple of bookstores and a couple of novelty stores will be selling them as well and by the summer.
I think that is wonderful. First of all, I think it empowers women to be able to say to a partner, you know, let's try, as opposed to saying, you know, I know how to do this.
Yeah.
And say, hey, why don't we just try this, even though you might know, right? And it makes it, I think, easier for the conversation to be had.
Yep.
Oh, wonderful. And so when you made this journey to, I write erotica. So this is, you know, I'm just really happy to have another sister able to be very fluid about it. What did your mama say?
Ooh. So hopefully she's not listening, but no, I mean, honestly, she's never read any of my books. She's a big supporter and she has all my books, which is so fun. Yes, A.A. Lewis does have the card. She's like, I love them. I have the card. But no, she hasn't read them, and I don't think she's aware of Joyride. I think my dad is honestly my biggest supporter. This man will literally sell books out of the trunk of his car. If I have a show or a books event anywhere near, he lives in Brooklyn, anywhere near Brooklyn, he is rolling up with a van full of people to let people out to buy my books. He is my biggest supporter, but he has no clue what I write. He has no idea the kind of stuff that I write. And I remember one time, one person who read my whole series was like, does your dad know that he's in the book? And I was like, so first of all, he's not in the book, but yes, a very strong, independent dad, you know, who is a West Indian dad is in the book. My dad is clearly West Indian. He's strong and independent. So, you know, it's not about my dad, but I just love the fact that people like so in tune to the book of like, is that your dad? And, you know, is that so-and-so? But no, I love to just write and my imagination just kind of run wild with it. And I have no direction of where I go. It just somehow goes on paper and just makes sense. But I love reading erotica. And it's just so edgy and it's funny every time. When I mean every time I do a book event, every time I've done a book event since Joyride comes out, everyone comes up to me, whether it be black or white, and say, is it like 50 Shades of Grey? And my response to them every single time was 50 Shades of Grey was cute. Right. This is an erotica book. I did not think 50 Shades of Grey, no shade to the author, I did not think it was as promiscuous as everyone felt it was. And I read the book. I thought
it was dungeness and not safe for young girls.
Correct. Because there was a lot of like
to correlate their love and how love is supposed to be supported, right?
Yes, good point. Yep.
So I really that kind of just got me on it. I just tell people, no, this is 50 Shades of Black.
Oh, I may have to steal that one.
You know. So when they asked me, oh, is this like 50 Shades of Grey? I said, no, this is 50 Shades of Black.
I love it. I may have to steal that one, actually. Yeah, that's a good one.
There's no gray. I tell them there are no gray areas in my book.
Listen, I may have to read one. If I haven't already, I may have to read one of your books.
Yeah.
I'm a big reader now, so I may have
Listen,
already
you
crossed
can
upon
take
a
it
few
with
of
you. I
your
mean,
books.
if it works for you, because they asked me the same thing. Is this like 50 Shades of Black, gray? So no. This is 50 Shades of Black. There's no
I feel
gray
like,
areas in this book.
and the crazy part is when I read 50 Shades of Grey, I was like, oh, because I've read Zane, and I'm like, have you read Zane? Because way worse in a best way possible than 50 Shades of Black. I love it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, Zane is way more entertaining and way more erotica than a 50 Shades. So yeah, it's so weird that you as well get a lot of people, both Black and white, that come up and ask the same question.
I
like,
think
oh, okay.
that, and she got very lucky, and she probably was very connected.
Yes.
But I think on it for a non-melanated young woman to put that kind of connotation where love is supposed to be, that kind of just erotica is one thing. Dungeness, love, and submission is a whole nother story.
Valid point.
So,
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, we were not gonna beat her up. She made a whole lot of money.
Oh,
and I'm
no,
glad for you.
I'm happy for her. Yeah,
I'm happy for you.
I think her book is on the banned list at most bookstores, which I think is hilarious.
Right. Okay. And I think that for us as melanated women, we have to be the spokesman for our sexuality. The ones that can. We're still stuck in the church and certain portions of the Bible and submissive and not being able to really talk about your sexuality. But then you think, I want to tell them, you're missing so much. You're going to go to the grave without having a great orgasm. And I don't understand why you would want to do that, right? I just don't understand why you would want to do that. But those things happen.
But something, I had my last event that I had a 2-day event on Saturday and Sunday, and I stayed till Sunday. And a lot of people's like, Sunday's going to have the church folks. I'm like, I'll say, let's see how it does. Listen.
Right.
They were buying these cards now. They
were putting that in the middle of the bulletin at church.
But they were buying it. And I was really happy. Sorry about my dog barking. But I was really happy that women are stepping out of their comfort zones to explore sexually. And I thought that was an amazing feeling. And again, I if you see the cards up close, they are tastefully done. So it's not like you want to hide it. And again, it comes in a very cute satin bag. And you could just put it on your bedside, so no one even may not know what it is or anything like that. And people were like, "Why don't you put it in a box?" I'm like, "Because it's bedroom fun, not children fun." So I don't want to put it in a box. I want to put it in a satin bag, because if you ever go to a erotica store, which I do, I go in and I kind of look around. They present the toys are presented. They always have like a carry-in bag. Because who's going to have some fun with it and then turn around and put it back in a box after the end of the thing? They're going to put it in the bag and use it again later. So
exactly.
That's the plan. Yeah.
So in the next 6 months, we're going to have an erotic revolution.
I love it.
In Daytona. So I will make sure that I keep you in mind.
Please do.
Come and be a part of it. Let's talk about your journey as a novelist, being self-published. The covers, and did you do your own design? You want to do it one at a time. So the question is, unpack your journey as a novelist. Are you self-published?
I am self-published, and I am happy to be self-published. I don't like to be put on a time frame. I like to just kind of creatively, freely produce when I feel the need to produce. I took a couple of months off. I had a surgery done in December. So I took a couple of months off, and I literally just started writing again yesterday, and I was ready to write. And sometimes I feel, for me, being a self-published author, I have the flexibility to write at my leisure, where I see other people who they're like, I have a deadline to finish something. And I've read books where they're beautifully written, and in the end, it just feels rushed. And in my mind, I'm like, well, this is what could happen if and when you have a deadline to follow through. So, I think self-publishing right now is the best direction for me. Things can change down the line once my series is done, and maybe someone wants to pick it up. I'm kind of open to that direction. But yeah, it's my particular process and my journey. I am exploring other options of revenue. Amazon is great, but Amazon is Amazon. You know, I recently just downloaded Book Funnel, so I'm going to start in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to have my ebooks available on my website for people to download directly. So just to get 100% of my profit is obviously the goal, and more so splitting it with, you know, Amazon or even a publication at this moment. So that's kind of my journey. And I like to go to bookstores and pop-up shops as myself and representing the Jamie Reynolds Chronicle as myself. I'm working on trademarking myself and becoming a brand in this industry. And right now, I am my brand, and I rather at the moment not be published. But you know, like I said, anything can change.
Well, yeah, the money can make you change. If the check is good, you know.
That too.
That. So
Yeah.
your covers are impressive. Do you design the covers yourself?
So yes and no. So I wish I can design the cover. All the other covers, and this is sad to say, and I my hat goes off to the designers that has to work with me. I'm slightly, not slightly, I am OCD. I'm very much OCD, and I had original covers before, and then when the six books was done, I looked at, well, 5 books were done. I said they don't match each other. That's because I kind of did it in pieces, and I missed some key components to it. So I rebranded all the covers, and I wanted it all to have a particular look. You don't see any of the characters' face because I want people to imagine what they want the character to look like. So all the characters have a cutoff face. You see a silhouette or a body. That's usually kind of consistent in the theme. There's a top banner, a bottom banner that has the information. This is kind of consistent in the theme. And yeah, but I'm very, very hands-on. It's funny, I had a conversation with a good author friend the other day, and one of the conversations we talked about was book covers. And we both kind of noticed that our covers are kind of plain to the industry as African-American authors. To me, they're very flashy. So sometimes outside of seeing a Black face on the book, people don't, it doesn't look like the norm bling. There's a car somewhere on there, you know, there's a lot of extra stuff going on. And I'm a very clean cut person. So I'm very, very hands-on with my design, you know, move things up. I know some terms. I would say add a backdrop, add a shadow, transparent, and by an extra 20%. So I'm very, very hands-on. My career actually started in TV production. So I used to be an editor for Channel 2 News. So I have that eye for editing. I just don't have Photoshop nor the patience to put something together right now. But I'm new on Canva, and me and Canva become best friends because I make my own little flyers now, and I do a lot of things with myself. So maybe down the line, I'll make my covers. The Joyride cover was actually a pre-made cover that I paid extra to add some of the additional graphics. And I feel like because the process is so tedious for me, I now like to look at pre-made covers because I think it's kind of worth the investment. A lot of the bulk of the work is done, and I may look at a cover and it speaks to me. Like I have a book in my head and I'm like, that's the cover for this book. And that's what happened with Joyride. I saw the cover. This was a red background. It wasn't purple, and the words were kind of different. And I saw this and I said, oh, that's kind of nice. I like that. And I said, can I pay extra for you to add some additional stuff so it can match my series? And that particular designer was okay with it. And this is kind of how I've gotten all my covers. But it's been a good journey. I mean, I always say what works for me may not work for someone else. People like a lot of the flashiness. They like all the extra wording. They like all that stuff. And do what you like. I am just a plain Jane. So I like very plain and simple. At least I think they're simple covers. And I like the no heads covers as well. That's just kind of like my thing.
So tell us about your editor. You've had the same one for 10 years?
Yeah, since 2015, we started this journey together. And I used to live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So all my books are written from cities that I've visited or lived in. I think it's really important for me to write accurately as possible. So I would never write about a city I've never visited or lived in because I don't want to make anything up. So I actually used to live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And at one of my jobs there, my last job there, I had to hire an assistant because work was just getting crazy. And the assistant I hired, I was like, what are you doing? She was like, well, I'm an author. And I was like, oh, how cool. I've always wanted to write a book. I started writing and kind of put it down. And she was like, no, I need you to pick it back up. So of course I did hire her just as my assistant. And she really pushed me in the nicest way possible to write the book, just write the book. She said, don't worry about it. I got the editor for you. I got the formatter for you. and I got everything you need. I will walk you through the process of getting it on Amazon. So that was kind of the kick in the butt that I needed, was someone, I say holding my hand very loosely, but someone to really guide me through the process. And I do pay it forward. I know people always hit my DMs all the time and they're like, oh my gosh, no one's ever spent this much time helping me through the process. I'm like,
right.
Someone helped me. Someone helped me. So
You
I
got to
have
reach
no
back.
problem
You got to
paying it
reach
forward.
back. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, but yes, my editor is Paula Noble, and Paulette Noble. She actually lives in Canada, believe it or not. And she's great. She has her own website. She is a full-time editor. This is not something she does on the side. She's a full-time editor, and she's very patient with me. I can send her something. I will say, hey, I'm working on another book, and this is the only deadline I have. I said, hey, I'm working on another book. I'm pretty much finished with it. I gotta, I want to read it over a couple of times and make sure it's thing. When is the next opening you have? And she will say, I have, April 7th or April 25th. I'm like, I'm gonna take the 7th. And that's the only date that I have that I will kind of like try to get it to her by the 7th. But other than that, I don't connect with her until later in the process. We do 2 rounds of edits. Bless her heart. I don't think I would leave her as much as I probably drive her crazy, because she is very patient with me. I can only imagine the version that I send her, even though I use Grammarly and even though I'm trying my best to edit it as much as possible, I'm still missing the mark on a lot of different things because of my disability. So she really takes it and she says, don't worry about it. I got you. She takes it and she edits it down. We do 2 rounds of edits, which again, I chose to pay for 2 rounds of edits. I know a lot of people do 1 round of edit. We do 2 rounds of edit. And my editing process literally can take anywhere between 2 to 3 months to edit. People are like, wow, yes, that's how important it is to have a well-edited project. Because much as I love to read, I hate to read a book that has I let 1 or 2 slide every now and then, but to see consistent errors and edits, I'm like, please, please, please invest in a good editor. That will save your book. It will save the flow of it. Someone's got to stop and try to figure out what word this is, or what word is missing, or something's misspelled. It kind of changes the flow of the book. So Pauline, she is Paulette, excuse me, I keep saying Pauline. Paulette is amazing. She was in Canada, and within 24 hours, she will respond back to me with a date. That is my cutoff date to send it to her. She usually gets it back to me within a week. And then I would say, give me about 3 weeks to re-edit it. Because what I would do is after she sends it back to me, I'll print everything out. And then I read it with her track changes, and I will circle, or I will accept them all. And then I will send it back to her, because after I read it on paper, I may make some extra changes or change something up, and I'll send it back to her, and she does another round of the same things. And it's always funny that she will find edits in her own edits. And that's why I'm telling people, do 2, if you can afford it, do 2 rounds of edit. And it's not even that expensive. It may be like $100 more to do a second round of edits, because they've already edited the first one as much as possible. But you'll be so surprised how much edits she finds in her own work the second time around. And I'm sure if I do a 3rd round of edits, because she's human, so I don't expect anything to be 100% nothing, but I can go back to her. Since I have a series, she's caught me sometimes and say, hey, just to let you know, according to my notes, in book 2, you had said this, and here we are, book 4, just to let you know. Just want to make sure you spelled Jennifer with 1 N in book 2, and then book 3, so she catches these mistakes. So I think, and my team, outside of my designer, my team, my editor, and my formatter, I'm well aware that I can go out and format it myself. I want a hands-off approach on those kind of aspects. I don't want to get anything wrong. I don't mind spending $60 to have someone format it from for paperback and for digital. I don't mind spending $60 as an investment in my product and in my brand. Again, I've read too many books on digital and see that it's supposed to be a new page, and the page is at the bottom of the new chapter is at the bottom of the page instead of the top of the page. So I don't want that, and I don't want to have to go back and look at something and say like, this is an error or this is a mistake. So I hire professional people. That's what they do for a living, and that's my team.
I'm all about giving people work that I can't do.
Yeah,
I really am. I have no ego when it comes to things like formatting and editing. I have no ego with that. I mean, I don't want you to change the story, right?
Yeah.
But I believe that I write erotica and that person can't, right?
Yeah.
Or vice versa. So Yeah, I like to use other people and their talents. I just think it's important, especially melanated people and their talents.
I wish I could. I wish I could say my team is melanated, and unfortunately, they're not.
No. That's just my preference if I can find it, right?
If I can find it as well, yeah. I'm afraid to start over and look. But when it comes to my designers, 100% of my designers has been, African American. I do like to give back in that aspect. But yeah, I'm afraid to kind of start over because I have a team that works for me. And yes, I would love them to be African American, but I'd rather be like, let me just stick with you guys. We have a thing going. We know each other. This is a process. But and I tell people, do what works for you. Do what's
well, listen, my whole tribe is not melanated, but the basic tribe,
yes.
And everybody doesn't have what you need, right? But the basic tribe is I try to make that happen. So tell us about how you write. Do you write in scenes? Do you write in chapters? Do you go from the beginning to the end, to the end to the beginning? Tell us.
I will tell you what I do the most of. For the most part, I write per chapter. Is that where the chapter stays? I can't guarantee that, because sometimes I will write something and I'm like, "Ooh, this is good to end the story." Because unlike most other authors, I don't have an outline in my head. I tell people the way I write is I have a working synopsis. That's the best I can do. I have a working synopsis. So the current book that I just started, it's called Thoughts. And I know this is probably one of the questions. I'm so sorry to skip ahead, but it's called Thoughts. And my concept of it is, and again, I just have a working concept. I have 8 books, and in each book, there's a theme.
Like the young people are talking about. You're talking about.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thoughts. That's all over there.
All right. Because us older generation is THOUGH.
Oh,
but that's not what we're talking about.
THOT. That whole over there. Thoughts. I do write a little ratchetness sometimes.
Yeah, it's okay. I just want people to understand.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Your head. It's because you're looking across the room, right? Okay.
But the concept of that book is 8 short stories about one character, one female F.R.E.S.H character in each of my series. So I'm going to have Lust and Lies, and I may have Tracy, who I just started with. I may have Pillow Talk, and I may have Jessica. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling one of the characters who had a small role in the series in one of the books, and they were kind of F.R.E.S.H. They may have either be the one someone cheated with, or the one that broke up a relationship, or just the one that was very promiscuous in these streets. So the concept of the working concept is, again, 8 short stories in one book, and they're all surrounded by female who are very promiscuous females, and it's called Thoughts. So that's the thought of it. And I just started writing it literally over the weekend. And I literally, the words are just coming in my head, and I would just type it out. But like I said, this is probably going to be an easier book to write because I'm really just writing 8 different storylines instead of one continuous story. So I don't know which direction I'm going to go. I know I'm going to and I want it somehow to relate to Jamie Reynolds Chronicles. So there's got to be an interaction of some sort, whether it be a flashback scene,
right,
or some kind of interaction where they're like, "Oh my gosh, that chick Jamie, she just drove me crazy," just something where they just mention her name for like a half second. And then the storyline goes back to them as an individual. Excuse me. It goes back them to as an individual. So that's kind of like,
go back to the place that the Magic City.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, so that can be a setting. Hey, that might be a setting for the book. And so I mean so my process is really just to get it on paper, and I just write and just kind of see what happens. Now I would stop. I may jump to another scene, or like there was a particular scene. I do use fact check, and I will go and reference. So I will go back to one of my books and just triple check a story, or triple check something just to make sure it's outlined correctly. So I had to stop in the current book that I was writing. I stopped and I put it in capital letters, check book 1 to reference, maybe what they were driving, what they did, or just something, and maybe find a way to tie in. I do a lot of flashback scenes. I actually had an author yesterday that was in my inbox yesterday, was asking me, how do you do flashback scenes? And I am queen of flashback scenes because, again, I'm trying to figure out a way to tie one character into all of my series of some sort. It may be a paragraph or a whole chapter. So a lot of that would be a little bit of a flashback scene. But I really wish I could say I had a process of a thought. I just have a working synopsis. and I just kind of write off of that thought. And like Joyride initially. So if you ever notice, or most people don't realize, everything I do has the initials JR. So JR is Jamie Reynolds, and everyone in the scene for the most part have initials that mean something.
Okay.
So Joyride is JR.
All right.
So that goes off to Jamie Reynolds. I do have a Facebook page called Jess Reed. That's JR. But I also have just other characters. You know, one of the characters' name is Michael Fuller, and his initials are MF. We'll let you have that one for a minute. And you know, and that was a personal that was a personal dig on somebody. And yeah, I just write it. And you know, I mean, sometimes they're from people I may know or inspiration of some sort. Some people even know that they're in the book and they just get a kick out of it.
Oh, that was one of my questions. Are any of your characters? I know that I had to actually write a letter to one of my college friends who would know that this scene was hers, right? There's just no way that she could read it and not know that we were all there together when it happened. And so, you know, I just told her, I said, I'll take it out if it's going to bother you. And she was like, no, I'm going to highlight it. And tell people that's me. You know?
I mean, I will probably say yes and no. I mean, I have a couple of good friends that they will read the book and they were like, is this me? But I don't write them I mean, I write my truth from my perspective, but I also, I'm very respectful in how I write it because again, my book is written from a female that went through life and she empowered and grew from it. So it's not like we got in a fight and we don't talk anymore. It's like we got in a fight and then we sat down and just like, all right, what's the beef about? Like there's a lesson in everything I do. So it's a hidden message in everything I do. Now there's a couple of guys, I'm not gonna lie, that is in the storyline and they may be like, this heifer that wrote about or something that happened. Like they will be like, this is me. But it's really funny. So I never jumped from book to book. And I literally had a really good friend of mine who is actually, he's actually the character Blue. He's gonna laugh when he hears this. He's actually the character Blue in my book. And Blue just had to kind of have this random, you know, this random life. And, you know, he was a friends with benefits and just Blue was just Blue. He was just like a really down to earth guy. And I just wrote about him. And he's aware that he's in the series. And I said to him, so I checked in on him because he's a single guy. And I said, just check it in, see what's going on in your life or whatever. And he said, you know, I'm no longer with the girl that a female that he was with. I thought she was a lovely female. They're no longer together. He was like, I'm just gonna be single forever. And I said, the next morning, I said, you inspired my next book. Your next book is gonna be called Blue, Friends with Benefits, erotica story of kind of like the dungeon submission, where you have a gentleman who is, and I told him the working synopsis, and he was like, interested, I'm here for it. And that was his response.
Right, exactly.
That was his response to it. So I mean, yes, if I'm still a good friend of yours, and you know me deep enough to know like more of like I'm a very private person, even in my social media page. It's the version I want people to see, not the real version of me. And that's not me being fake or phony. That's just me being a private person.
Right.
And yeah, so people who truly, truly know me, they would read a series and be like, is that so-and-so? Or did that really happen? Or I remember you mentioned something about it, but you know, outside of a couple of people, it was all done in good writing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there are things that, was there anything in your book one particular thing that got a lot of attention that you were really surprised at? Mine was a 2-page abortion scene.
Oh, okay.
I just wrote it because, you know, it followed the kind of the path. But I never knew that it would get the kind of response. Was there something in any of your books that got a response that you're like, wow, I didn't think anybody would. Okay.
Yes. So in 2 of the books, I didn't expect people to cry in two of the books, and one in particular, there was a scene where, you know, there was a relationship that went completely south, and the character Jamie wrote a gratitude letter to the ex-boyfriend, and I did not realize people would be affected in a positive way. That was like I cried when I read the gratitude letter, because instead of writing from a hurt place, I wrote the character's gratitude letter from a place of, I appreciate what we had, what we did, where we were at, and I wish you the best of luck. Of course, it was much longer than that, but I wish you the best of luck. And people to this day was like, when you got to the gratitude letter, and there's a second letter that I also wrote as well, people like, I cried because that hit so real that you inspired me not to write my own gratitude letter, but to cleanse myself of hurt to move on. But it was just one of those moments where it's like, I really just wrote the letter because I just thought I was looking for a way to end the book. And I just thought to kind of say goodbye to this chapter in that person's life and move on to the next book, the next chapter. Let me just write a letter of goodbye. And I just did not think it was going to have the impact. And I loved it. I love it to death. I just didn't think it was going to have the impact that it had.
Yeah,
and I get
that's
all the time people
surprised.
talk about it. Yeah.
You know, oh, you don't want to talk about that sex scene?
Yeah, I know. Well, they still talk about the sex scenes now, but I'm just that's the one I remember most is the gratitude letter. Yeah.
And I was just thinking about Joyride. It'd be nice to have a t-shirt, a purple t-shirt with a woman on a motorcycle.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yes. So before I do a working title, I always Google the title that I'm thinking just to kind of see what is associated with. So Joyride is associated with what you're correct. Motorcycles, cars. There's a slogan for a couple of used car, a couple of dealerships. But yeah, Joyride, because the theme or the slogan that Joyride is enjoy the ride. Right. And that's the slogan I go with. So yes, I'm working with a couple of.
I'm sure that it would sell white really well during Bike Week. I'm just saying.
Ooh, okay now. What is Bike Week? I gotta break some of my notes. But you know, I actually have the most success in non-book events. Okay. So going down to like Black Beach Weekend or going down to like an expo, I do have the most success. And this is why I have a Facebook group called Just Read. And my Just Read Facebook group is a collective group of authors that come together and we do pop-up shops, pop-up bookstores. On average, we have anywhere between 4 to 8 authors that comes together. I share the table, we all share the table, and I'm there and I have a pop-up bookstore and we do non-book events. And what it is people will come up to the table and I'm like, hey, we are African-American book club, if you want to call us that, and we're Just Read, we're a pop-up bookstore. Or at this table, you have 7 different authors at one table and we're all Black and independent. And people love the idea of coming to a table. And I say, and this is true, the authors get 100% of the profit. They get 99.7% because it's either, if they pay with credit card, they pay with this minus the 3 or the 5% service fee, but they get pretty much 100% of the sale. And I'm like, the goal is not to make money off this. The goal is to highlight us all because it's kind of like a chain effect. You know, I'm at the table, I'm selling my books, but I also have these 6 other authors sharing me at a table on their social media page. They're sharing me at the table selling their books. There's, you know, so it's like this chain effect of all of us are winning at the table. And it's been a very successful journey. And like I said, we only do non-book expos for the simple fact that we're not sharing a table and I don't want to, you know, ruffle any feathers at book events. So we do non-book expos. And, you know, on average, it's a pop-up bookstore. So on average, we sell anywhere between, I think the last event we did, we sold 27 books. It to some people, it may not be like a huge success, but we are a success because again, we were at a non-book event. People did not expect to buy books and we sold 27 books. So that means that everybody made back their investment plus more. And again, you got visibility into a new city, a state, and a new market, because when you have to factor in the cost to travel, hotel, this, that, you know, it eats away at your profit. So to know that we all are winning and it's costing us very little and it's also supporting one another, it's a sisterhood that, you know, unfortunately in this industry, I'm not aware of it, but I hear a lot of drama and a lot of lack of support happens a lot in this industry, but I've seen nothing but positivity. I've seen us women and a couple of guys come together to support one another and to promote the table, to promote the event. And I think it's been a beautiful experience.
And I think you're right. I mean, one of the things that I wanted to portray in the book festival that I run is that it is something there for everybody. So F.R.E.S.H is fiction, romance, erotica, spiritual, health, and history, and call it H, whatever you want.
I love
so
it.
You can bring whatever you want to the book festival and sell it. But I do love your idea about pop-ups at the Strawberry Festival. You know what I mean? That you did, that somebody might not even know that they were going to be. And thank you. I'm going to use that in the state of Florida. There's an event every other week. And
there you go.
Yeah,
we do have spinoff now. We have 2 states that are doing a spinoff of Just Read spinoff. So we can talk later. If you
please. That would be wonderful. Let's do
North
that.
Carolina will be doing a spinoff of Just Read for the summer, and Pennsylvania will also be doing a Just Read spinoff in the summer. But yeah, everyone's like, this is a great idea. Everyone's joined together. I still make me and Canva are best friends. So I make the flyer, I promote it, and we promote it on our Just Read page. And then it's a spider effect that everyone shares. It's been shared.
Oh, yeah, that's something that we definitely have to do. So we'll get together when this is over. Because I just think never really thought about going to a non-book event and thinking that you could sell books. But you're right. I mean, that's, thank you very much for that.
No problem. No problem.
And so I want to be responsible for your time. So do you keep a journal?
I do not.
Oh,
I do not.
I
know. I don't keep a journal. I used to. I just stopped maybe about a year or two ago. I used to keep a gratitude jar. And every time something positive used to happen in my day, in my minute, I would journal it. I would put it in a jar. I would write it on a sticky note, and I would just put it, the date, the time, and what happened. I found a good parking space. I felt good this morning. I walked a mile this morning. I was, I woke up this morning. Anything that just made me smile in the day, I will write it down. And at the end of the year, I need to get back to it, but I really missed it. At the end of the year, I will open up everything and read how blessed I was in 2022, 2023, whatever year it is. Because I feel like I would remember the car accident that I got into. I would remember when I lost a loved one. I may never remember when I found $1 on the floor. So that was a form of journaling for me, was just to kind of reflect on a positive note that happened in my life. But I'm not a big journaler because I don't stay focused to do it. Like if I would like to do it, I would like to be consistent with it. And I'm just right now not consistent. Life is crazy. So I'm not consistent, but I admire people who journal. And actually, I am actually going to make a Joyride journal. It's going to be like a self-love journal. I'm still working out the details, but it's going to be a additional spin-off to the Joyride. But it's going to be like a sexual love journal or something like that. I'm kind of working on, because I'd see it's a thing online, and you don't see Black faces or Black women doing something like this. So with the success of Joyride flashcards in the book, you may see more Joyride products coming out in the near future.
So what's next for Casandra Charles?
Well, hopefully Thoughts will be coming out by the end of the summer is my goal. And then I think I'm going to probably work, once I get the Joyride flashcard kinks out the way, I'm waiting on my trademark. I think I'm going to do a Joyride deluxe set, which is going to be like a box set of maybe additional erotica stuff in the box. And that's probably going to come out around Christmas time for the holidays.
Okay. And your next book?
It's going to be Thoughts. And it's a working title, but it's called Thoughts, and it's 8 short stories of thought-ish characters out of my series and standalone.
Someone said to me once, "Oh, the character is not a whore. She has whorish tendencies."
Absolutely. Yep. I love it. And I'm here for that. Listen, I feel like I've heard people say, I love how adventurous Joy was. And I'm like, I think we all have a little joy in us.
Right.
Even though she's very promiscuous, I think we all just kind of love how she owned the moment, and she was well respected, even if she was very openly sexual. She was just so respected in the streets. And I just love how powerful that statement was, because yes, I did write about a female who was very whorish tendencies, but she was successful, and she was beautiful in her own right as what she liked to do. And she's like, hey, I like to have sex. And she don't
not a whore, just has
I like to have sex. Guys like to have sex. Why can't I like to have sex? So I read back my books and I'm like, oh, that's a valid point. I like that.
We ask each of our guests to give us a pearl of wisdom before they leave. So we'll ask you for that now.
My wisdom is very simple. Just write.
Yeah.
That's what I tell everyone. How do I get started? Just write. What do I do next? Just write. Once you write it, the rest of the stuff is easy. The hardest part is writing it. So just write.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being back on our first Zoom in
Yes.
on a Fresh Conversation after vacation. And thank you everyone who did come to the Fresh Book Festival. Cassandra, what a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much.
And I'm about to get off of here and get my cards.
There you go. Go to my website.
Joyride, yeah. I'm gonna have some of my little satin purple.
Perfect, yeah. Get it in there.
Yeah.
My website is www.jamiereynolds.chronicles.com, and I'm sure it'll be posted somewhere on YouTube or on your social media site. But follow me on Facebook at author Casandra. Casandra spelled with one S, Casandra Charles. But thank you guys so much. This was a blast.
Thank you. Thank you. And to our audience, when the lights go out and the cell phone towers go down, all you have left is a flashlight and a good book. Thank you very much. And good night from Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.